Previously on Screenshare and Chill.
I have like Stockholm syndrome. I've literally started playing The Lord of the Rings online again, and I'm watching YouTube reactions to the movies. Like, what am I fucking doing?
It's a 24/7. You start showing up for work barefoot, and your boss is like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And of course, then we get the classic potatoes. Boil them, mash them, put them in a stew.
That's not the way I remember it.
How do you remember it?
It's just memes have ruined my brain. It's boil them, mash them, stick them in your ass. This is what the
Wow, I don't think I've seen that meme. Wow.
Yep, that's a different meme than what I've seen.
You need to leave. That is disgusting.
Yeah.
We now know what sort of parts of the internet that Keith has been on.
Maybe that should be the title. Episode part 2. Give it to us raw. Raw and wriggling.
Ew.
That is what he says, right?
Yeah,
Raw and wriggling.
it is, but in that context, it really messes with my brain.
Moving on.
Obviously, nobody here is into tentacle porn, at least not publicly. They could have called him Mario or Luigi, and it would have been fine. Now, we don't have any Italian representation in the movies. This is anti-Italian discrimination, is what this is.
This is my horse, Luigi.
Look at my horse. My horse is amazing.
His brother Mario is back at the barn.
If you've got a lot of money, he gets a little testy, so you better stay away from him. This man has a control over his body that humans don't normally possess.
Hi, everybody. It's Brad Dourif.
And now, the conclusion to Two Towers.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
This is where we have the largest portion of Faramir exposure of the story. So, like, Faramir learns a little bit more about Frodo and the Ring. They talk about Gollum and stuff like that. We might as well just talk about that whole storyline because it's kind of interweaved. This revolves around the capture of Osgiliath, and on the map, Osgiliath is like right outside of the walls of Gondor, so it's like their last bastion. So even though us as the viewer are like, oh, it's just one town you're losing, well, imagine Washington, D.C. being okay, but New York City has been occupied. It's not that far away, and it's a sign that your culture is about to be destroyed if you're down to your last city. So like Faramir captures Osgiliath, finds the hobbits, and we find out a little bit more about Boromir and Faramir's story.
Is that backstory only in the extended edition? Is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
because they brought Sean Bean back. They brought Sean Bean back to record these scenes because he went back home after the first movie because his character was done, so he just flew back home, and they brought him back to refilm these scenes, so they had to repay, and they had to go through a lot of flight bullshit.
And then they cut him out of the theatrical release.
And then he never ended up in the actual theatrical release, and he's like, what the fuck? I think one of the interviews he said, it was disappointing that I wasn't on screen, but they still paid me, so or something like that. So
I love this edition, actually. I think it gives great context to Boromir. And
a lot of the extended stuff we can cut easily. This is one of those scenes where I feel like the movie is lesser for not having it in, because it tells you a lot more about a character and lets you see the depth of Boromir that died earlier.
Also, great casting for Faramir because he just looks like he could be a brother to Sean Bean. Something about the angles of his face.
Absolutely. Younger brother even. Like it looks like he's the younger brother, that's the older brother physically. Even their mannerisms when they talk, they both have a lower register voice, but Sean Bean's is just a little bit lower than Faramir's. It's very, very similar mannerisms, everything. Well done. And I'm sure some of it was casting, but a lot of it's, you got to give credit to those actors and directors that pulled that performance out.
Because now we know that Boromir was under tremendous pressure from his never pleased father to get the ring. You know what I mean? And so that's a 100% conflict within him that we didn't have context for in the first movie.
A lifelong dream of his.
Yes.
This isn't just something that he thought of a couple weeks ago. No, he's been dreaming of his father's approval his entire fucking life and all the trauma that comes with that. And it shows what a strong person he is, that even in the face of all these powers, he's able to resist it. He doesn't even give as much of power to the ring as Boromir did. Everybody thought Boromir was the stronger brother. No, Faramir was much stronger of spirit than his brother was.
Yes, because Boromir was trying to retain his father's approval, which he had in spades, but Faramir needed to do something
earn
to prove
his
that
father's approval.
To earn the approval, to prove that he even kind of could hold a candle to his brother in his father's eyes.
What's the dad's name?
Denethor.
Denethor. I saw a great meme of Faramir walking up and saying, Dad, it's my birthday, I'm 36. And Denethor says, 36? But when your brother was your age, he was 38.
Exactly.
I was expecting you to say, your brother did that 3 years ago. Big deal.
Like impossible standards.
Yes, exactly.
I have a small story about somebody I used to know. And it was somebody that, it was a brother and sister combo. And sister was very, very smart. And she was a little bit older than the brother. The brother he would describe himself as pretty smart, but he was nowhere near as smart as his genius older sister. But his genius older sister went through life being a genius, and she never really had to try very hard at a lot of things, and she could get by with a monicum of average effort at best, whereas her brother had to try really, 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 really hard. And fast forward later on in life, and he's got a master's degree, and his bachelor's is with a double major with 4.0 grade point average. He's working at a high-tech firm in New York City, and she's selling furniture in a small town. Why? Even though she's smarter, and even to this day, I think they would argue that she's still more mentally capable than he is.
She isn't
but because
used to
he wasn't
trying.
born with
Yeah.
that. Exactly. He had to try harder, which ended up creating this different type of work ethic in him and a
That's
different lifestyle
literally
altogether.
Also, gifted child burnout syndrome.
I was just
It's a
about to
real
say
thing.
that's a pitfall for the gifted, 100%. I'm in that pit right now. I think not to
Yay!
say hey, I'm gifted, but it's like
No, it's to quote Star Trek, you will never find a more worthy adversary than your own potential. And I'm in the same boat, and it's saying that about ourselves is not putting a feather in our cap. It's basically saying I was born with a gift, and because of it, I haven't done as much as I should. It's a failing of character. It's not we don't meet it as a, hey, look how cool I am.
Yeah,
it's more as a, man, I kind of suck in this way.
I should really be doing more. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, heck, that's part of the reason why we do a podcast.
I have not lived up to my potential.
And it sounds weird to anybody listening, but it's part of the reason why we do this, because this is a creative outlet. It's a way for us to learn how to use new things and talk about new things in new ways. So this is
and
a way
it requires effort
of using that.
and challenging
does. It
ourselves to
does.
learn new skills, like
trust
editing
me.
and
When we come back for episode 3 of this movie, remember what you just said, Keith. It takes some effort. I swear to God, we'll have it done by number 5. We won't have to get to number 6. I promise.
for this movie.
We constantly are jumping back and forth. I think we've talked enough about Faramir and Boromir, so I'm going to jump back to, for just one moment, because we keep having these interludes with Arwen and Aragorn, and every time, at least by this point in the movie, when we cut back to Arwen and Aragorn kissing again, I'm imagining Fred Savage from The Princess Bride going,
Hold it. What is this? Are you trying to trick me? Is this a kissing book?
because there's just there's so much interludes, and I like Aragorn and Arwen, so I'm like, yeah, sure, show me more of them kissing, but I can imagine for a kid, it's got to be like, ugh.
Even for me,
come
it was
on.
like, okay, we're adding all of this because we're trying to put more romance into these books. Because there really wasn't a lot of romance in the books. There was not a lot of focus on their relationship at all, really.
Yeah.
So it gets to be a bit much. Like, okay, move on with the story already.
We have a scene between Arwen and Elrond where they're discussing her future and whether or not she's going away to the west with her people, and he's obviously putting his foot down. He doesn't want his daughter to die with the humans.
No daughter of mine is going to date some janitor.
Yeah, no daughter of mine is going to date a Capulet.
He says here that this is not our war. And, that line just rankles me because you are literally, this is your world. And I get that you're now deciding to leave the world behind, but, you live here. This is your world. What do you mean it's not? It's your war. It's your war. You don't get to divorce yourself from your surroundings like that.
From his point of view, men are always causing war. There's always going to be a war. So you eventually have to pull out and go, you know what? Just because men are fighting men, I'm out of this. I'm not fucking with men anymore.
To be fair, that is not where they're from. They're pulling out and going back to the Undying Lands or whatever.
They're from a 2D world. I don't know if you know this, but according to the scholars of Tolkien history, Urdu, the planet that we're on now, is the first planet to have a magnetosphere and be a globe. The planet that they were all on before this was flat like a map. Did you know that about Urdu and where the elves are from?
Is it a flat Earth, or is it they're hieroglyph people that have no third dimension?
I'm under the understanding that it was a 2-dimensional planet, it's laid out like a map. Their map is laid out like a map, and that's why the 2-dimensional world and the 3-dimensional world are separating, and the bridge between the two is weakening every day. So that's why the elves have to hurry up and get to the fantasy world that's 2D. before the portal closes.
It's kind of weird. But
yeah, I don't know enough about Tolkien lore, and there are so many fucking appendices and letters written about the shit that you could literally get a master's degree just in Tolkienology.
I mean, it's crazy, but I like it. Like it's an interesting concept. I'm pop off.
And if nothing else, it makes us think about different dimensions, like our dimension versus the elves are going somewhere where, well, how can they live forever? How does time work differently? It's a different dimension. So the rules that you're used to, like for example, you know how our planet is a ball. Well, theirs is a flat plane. How does that work?
Right,
I don't know. That's
Jamie.
what's weird about it. I don't bring up the alternate casting too much, but imagine both the alternate cast in this. Imagine this conversation between Elrond and his daughter, but it's David Bowie and Helena Bonham Carter. That could have been really fucking cool too.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, like, I love the cast we got, but oh man.
Why don't we go ahead and talk about the scene that broke you, Kelly? Because that's right about where we are of Frodo talking Smeagol into letting himself be captured.
Isn't that more at the end of the movie?
Nope.
Like that happens.
No, that's happening soon. But before we get that, I'd like to. There's one moment where Gandalf says to Aragorn, I believe he's talking to somebody. I think it's Aragorn, and he says he knows the ring is close, saying that basically Sauron knows the ring is close. Mm-hmm. But then he tells them that their advantage is he doesn't know that we're trying to destroy it.
Yes.
Why would the ring be going towards, none of this makes sense to me because I was under the impression that when he puts the ring on, there's a connection to Sauron. Like
close
Sauron
metaphorically. Close metaphorically.
Also, the ring would be trying to get to him. The goal of the ring is to get back to Sauron. Yeah. So the ring should be moving towards him.
But how does he not know? Because it feels like it's very wishy-washy. Sometimes the ring can sense Sauron, and sometimes the ring is the embodiment of Sauron's soul, and sometimes it's a completely separate entity that they can just kind of feel each other sometimes from afar. Is it a part of his soul? Because imagine if we borrowed the Harry Potter reference, and if Tom Riddle was getting close to one of his Horcruxes, it's very personal, the experience. You know what I'm saying? That's part of your soul. That's right there. You would feel that. So like, I don't know. It feels a little bit inconsistent that he both knows that it's getting close, but he has no idea that they're trying to destroy it.
Well, it's getting close, but is it south? Is it north? Is it east? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like it's.
How does he know anything about it? How does he know that it's even found then? If he can't sense what the ring is going through, then how does he know anything? You know what I'm saying? Is it just a ping on a radar?
Yes, kind of.
And in which case, why doesn't he just go find it?
It's his soul is in communion with the ring, I feel, right? So he knows that it's close. Like Jamie said, the ring's goal with whoever it corrupts is to return to its master. So he would suspect that, you know, who has the ring is under the influence and bringing it to the master. He just doesn't know specifically where they are.
So he didn't know about Gollum. Sauron is not familiar with who Gollum is.
Yeah, he is familiar with Gollum.
Well, by the time they capture him, but up until then, when Gollum had the ring for hundreds of years, Sauron had no idea.
Right, it was hidden away in the Shire, and then under the mountain. Yes, that is the truth.
Yes.
Okay, because it just, and even like being able to sense it, if there's like a hot potato, cold potato, or getting hotter, colder, warmer, like couldn't Sauron just walk around and feel where it's at or something? You know, I don't. It feels a little inconsistent that like it's super important to him and he can sense it. But he's not going to go actively looking for it or use this sense in any way to aid in his.
Well, Gollum is a bit unique in that his selfishness kept him from like he stayed in a pit under the mountain.
Because he wanted it himself.
Yeah, it's his ring, my ring, my.
Does he ever put it on?
Yes.
Or does he just talk to it?
No, he uses it to move around. Like to not be seen by the goblins and stuff under the mountain.
Yeah.
So when he puts it on, doesn't that kind of like ping Sauron? It's like connecting to a cell tower or something?
No, because he's too far under the mountain.
So he gets bad cell service.
And also,
there's bad cell service in Middle Earth. Yeah.
Sauron was fighting to come back. Like he wasn't at strength either. So like it's
true.
It's that combination.
After the Hobbit is when Sauron regains strength. There's a Gandalf drives the necromancer out of an old fort. It's like a side story in The Hobbit that isn't shown but mentioned. And it turns out that necromancer was Sauron and has since returned to Mordor and has been gathering strength. So he's more aware and more cognizant and more like hands-on.
Yeah, I'm not even calling like loophole. I'm just like, I'm not it's not fully landing where but I think that's okay. That's kind of, it's okay for as the viewer to not fully understand how the ring works. Even the characters themselves don't know exactly how it works.
But it is answered in the text, so
yes.
that's
cool. That's all that matters.
The ring of power within my grasp.
Denethor is played by the incomparable John Noble. I fucking love John Noble. Unfortunately, I was first exposed really to John Noble in a parking structure in Baltimore. No, I was first exposed to John Noble via this movie. So I unfortunately got to know him first as a horrible, gross old man that doesn't know how to eat cherry tomatoes.
But he doesn't do that in this one, right? Isn't that the next one?
No, he doesn't. But this is where we meet
you
him.
don't see him much in here.
We do meet him a little bit in this, but so I already didn't like him in this.
But also, you don't meet him in the theatrical release.
I have two things I want to say about this. One, I've heard he's a lot easier to empathize with and sympathize with in the books. He's not quite as horrible in the books.
Yep.
And two, well, at least they show some positive parts of him alongside the shitty parts too.
Yeah.
And two, I love John Noble in so many other roles, and anybody that hasn't seen Fringe, that is the X-Files of the modern day. It's so fucking good. I haven't seen the whole show. I've seen like 3.5, 4 seasons of it or something.
I know.
John Noble is incredible in it.
I know a bunch of people who love that show and keep telling me I should watch it.
If you were like me and this is all you saw of John Noble and you go into Fringe, you're going to be shocked as much as I was. Like, holy fuck, this dude knows how to act. He can pull off a lot of different shit. Like, it's a really good sci-fi show with a coherent story. Watch Fringe. It's good. Any thoughts on John Noble and Denethor? Whether you like him, whether you dislike him?
I've liked him in everything I've seen him in, mostly.
I honestly don't even know what else he's been in, so I have to go look and see. That's the thing about a lot of these characters in here is they're not necessarily immediately recognizable outside of the show, you know.
What else has he been in that's a really big name? Because I just know him from Fringe, and I fucking loved that.
Oh, he was in Sleepy Hollow. I don't know what he played in Sleepy Hollow, but I like that show. He was in The Conjuring.
He also plays Scarecrow in Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Batman
Plays Jonathan
villain.
Crane / Scarecrow.
He's one of those guys that has a memorable small role in like a whole bunch of shit because he's very good at what he does.
If you know him as a off the wall character actor, and then you watch Fringe, you get to see him in a main character role. He fucking is amazing. When he's allowed to take center stage, he's fucking wonderful.
Oh, he's a Fringe actor. That's what.
He's a Fringe actor playing in Fringe.
He played Butcher's dad in The Boys.
Oh, that's probably one of the more recent things there.
Yes. Yep. He's really good at playing hateable characters.
Hateable dads. Shitty father. Yeah. Like
you had kind of alluded to earlier, and I've kind of mentioned earlier, the next big scene I think worth mentioning is where Smeagol is betrayed by the Master.
It's a betrayal to him, but I don't think of it as Frodo betraying him. He's saving his life.
You and I both know that, but we both know also that Frodo used his trust to put him in a position where humans captured him and beat him.
Instead of killing him outright.
Instead of killing him, yes, but that it's still, you betrayed me.
Think of it as a dog. Yeah, go back to the dog is playing in the river.
I get it. I get it, and it sucks, but like I would rather do that. I'd rather do that and still have my dog than have them shoot my dog dead with arrows. So.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't, but still watching the dog get kicked and captured
terrible. Absolutely heartbreaking.
It hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Because I know that much like the dog, Smeagol's never going to understand that extra level to it.
Right.
He's only going to see, especially considering he's battling with this other persona in him, and that other persona is looking for a reason, and that's exactly what happens.
It's the perfect storm, and this is like the culminating point that brings it back to that. Like, it's like a shattering point. I think if this hadn't happened, he maybe not would have betrayed.
I think this is similar to Tolkien's response to if Samwise wasn't mean to Gollum. If Samwise wasn't mean to Gollum, would the ending have been different? And he said, absolutely. I think this is another one of those moments. If the humans were kinder to Frodo and Gollum, but I mean, overall, were they kind? Overall, yeah. But it took them doing some stupid shit and mean shit to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's awful because you can see in his eyes that he isn't quite sure that he trusts him telling him to come, but he does anyway. It's like, fuck, man. And then the aftermath of him just holding himself in the corner and weeping. Break my heart.
It does a wonderful job of making you feel sorry for Smeagol because he's not really a character that is very sympathetic through a lot of the show. So
while this is going on, there's this ongoing story back in Rohan that they're constantly trying to convince King Theoden to take his people to Helm's Deep to protect them. Eventually, after some him and hawing, eventually they convince him to go. And then once they get there, they're also having the same debate going on where they're telling him to reach out to Gondor and ask for aid. And this one he does not bend on. And this is one of those moments where he's an honorable character, but he makes some really shitty choices. I don't know if Gondor would have rushed to help them, but at least they could have tried. Maybe it would have changed things a little bit better. It at least would have allowed the other Rohirrim in the area that were exiled to know earlier to come to help. But who knows? Maybe this was all a part of the prophecy, as Io or whatever the god's name is.
Well, this is a pride. This is, as a king, you probably have a certain level of pride.
Oh yeah,
and this is a prideful decision. Where was Gondor when you know?
And as we all know, the other side of pride is just insecurity.
Again, that is the failing of men.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So like his insecurity is what leads to him acting more prideful than he needs to be, and there is a point where the boy has a sword and
child soldiers, like they're having to arm up. It's really harrowing. See,
and
there's
we
several
as the
children.
Adults, as we as the adults, we notice that this is completely wrong, and we feel what Aragorn is obviously portraying on his face, but he doesn't want to give that knowledge to the child. It's one of those where being truthful will hurt your cause.
Right.
So he doesn't tell the child that, oh my God, you shouldn't even be wielding a sword, young man. You should be. So instead, he just tries to fill him with confidence that it's a good sword, and he swings it around and shows how a master would use it, and kind of impresses the child a little bit. He's like, whoa, like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the sword. At least know that the sword will be true to you.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, the kid says something like, do we stand to hope, or something along those lines? And Aragorn says, there's always hope. And if that's a callback, if I'm correct, like that's been said to him before. Either by Gandalf or by Arwen or something. Like somebody has said that before, and I was wondering if either one of you remembered that, because I couldn't remember it. But I know it feels like a
I believe
callback.
it was Arwen that said it. But yeah.
I think Merry and Pippin at the Entmoot is our stand-in for our audience as we talk about The Lord of the Rings.
We have now decided that you are not orcs.
Yeah. It's like, fuck me,
are you
man.
kidding me? Yeah. You've been there for fucking 2 hours. What are you talking about?
It was a whole day.
Oh my God.
It takes a very long time to say anything in Old Entish.
You're still debating whether or not Sauron is in the ring? What are we doing here, guys?
It's been going for hours.
They must have decided something by now.
I mean, we haven't even brought up the Entish poetry, so just shh, we'll be fine.
But it's nighttime already. You can't take forever. We're running out of time.
So there's a point where Legolas and Aragorn have some words where Legolas is trying to convince Aragorn that it is hopeless and that all these people are going to die. And Aragorn jumps out at him because they're speaking in Elvish and he speaks out in English. No, then I'll die with them. And I'm
terrible.
like, whoa, bad time to change. Bad time to code switch.
Well,
They just stayed in Elvish.
They understand the conversation now. You know?
That's kind of what happens when you're speaking in a second language or whatever. And when the more emotional you get, the more likely you are to switch back to your original.
Yeah, but all that good you did by like not scaring that kid earlier, you just undid all of that. You just scared like 30 people in the room with you. Like the biggest badass in the room is going, we're all going to die. Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Great. But I do appreciate that a few scenes later, whatever, we see Legolas go back and apologize to his friend, and they make up, and you can see that there's a definite closeness there. Even if they disagreed, it's just a disagreement. We're still fighting on the same side. And while they're making this apology and rekindling, the Fellowship theme is playing in the background, reminding them of their bond. This is the part of the Fellowship that never fell apart, was Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. So, I don't want to say anything if that was supposed to be private. Sorry, Jamie.
No, that's okay. I just didn't know if Keith would want to know.
Say it.
I'm over here crying. I'm crying about the description of the child soldier and Aragorn's conversation with him because I am hormonal as hell right now. I'm over here trying not to sob.
No, you go right ahead. It's good for content. Let's get those tears right in the mic, Jamie. Get them right in there.
Well, if it helps, that kid and many others probably did die in the battle. So
yes, they probably
they're
did.
no longer suffering. So
hey, there's your bright side.
Yeah.
The battle at Helm's Deep is about to begin. Theoden gives his speech. Brilliant speech. I'm imagining a lot of that is pulled right out of the page.
Yes.
The way it sounds, the way it's written.
Also,
so begins the war of our time, that kind of stuff. Like, oh, so many classic lines in that.
Again, I would follow that man into any battle. Like, he inspires me to fight.
Oh, he'll get you in one because he's a dumbass.
Yeah.
So he'll get you one. You'll probably lose, but he'll get you one. No
he
time.
inspires me to fight every time.
His speeches are wonderful, and a lot of that is the writing. A lot of it is the directing, but I'm going to heap most of that credit right on the man that plays Theoden.
Yep.
His part is not that big. Like, he could have played it a lot more understated, or he could have overstated it, but he did it perfectly where the scenes where I'm not a parent that I've never gone through losing a child. You know what I'm saying? But his scenes talking about it, oh my God, my heart reaches out for you. I don't really care that much about the Rohirrim. I mean, I want them to live, but like, whatever, they're just a city. And, but he makes me care about them. He and Eowyn make me care about these people.
Alas, that these evil days should be mine. The young perish and the old linger. That I should live to see the last days of my house.
Cedric's death was not of your making.
No parent should have to bury their child.
I really like Theoden's armor. Theoden's armor is pretty fucking cool. His squared off shoulders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they definitely, like, they even said the costumers said they would do a lot of leather working, obviously, to make the shit, but then they would beat the hell out of it for a few days. They'd make the actor walk around in it, even in the days they weren't working.
So it was
They'd cover them in water and then make them walk around just to get those grooves in it, like you've been walking in the rain. Yeah, perfect, exactly like it was worn. And that's why Aragorn, or Viggo Mortensen, a lot of times he would wear his outfit around even when he didn't have any scenes, just because he wanted his shit to even look more worn. He carried his sword with him to the store.
I've watched Rings of Power. I enjoy it. I have, it's not perfect. It's not quite the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's pretty good though, and it showed me some cool stuff. But that is one of my gripes, is that the armor on them looks like it just came off of the costuming rack, whereas here...
Yeah, it's so clean.
Yeah, everything here is disheveled, and like something's like the left pauldron is hanging a little bit more to the side because it's had more wear and tear, and it just feels lived in.
It's the Instagramification of a lot of media. Like, I appreciate when I watch a TV show and a character has a pimple. Mm-hmm. Or you can see some errors, like somebody with a bit of a pockmark face or something like that. Even just seeing a pores on the bridge of somebody's nose. We're humans. That's how our skin develops. And so many movies I see where everything is glossed over and everything feels like I'm looking through a wax lens or, i.e., an Instagram fucking filter. And it's annoying.
A little texture is not a bad thing.
We're about to dive into the Battle of Helm's Deep, right?
Yep, because my next note is right before the battle, we have our last big twist, a little bit of good news for the humans, even though it looks to be basically like an army of 300 facing off against an army of 10,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
it feels very much like the Hot Gate, Leonidas, that whole thing.
Yeah, that might be where Tolkien was pulling inspiration from historically.
Very
you know
likely.
what I mean? Like a small band of 300 versus an army of 10,000. Yeah.
But see, where the orcs fail here is they did not follow Sun Tzu's advice. You never corner an opponent where they have no escape, or else they will fight like a rabid Wolverine, or however he puts it. And that's what they have nowhere else to go, so they might as well fight to the very last.
Right.
But right before the battle engages, we have the last bit of good news where the elves that we weren't sure if they even gave a shit, and they were acting more aloof than the Elrond elves, they all show up in force.
Yep. And they were supposed to be leaving too, from what I know.
And Haldir still looks very pretty.
Yeah.
That is the twist to me that made me respect those elves so much. And it shows you that Elrond's elves, on the surface, it's like the West Coast versus East Coast. Elrond's elves are from the West Coast, so they're going to say all the nice things to you, but when it comes down to it, they ain't going to fucking help you. Whereas the other elves are from the East Coast. They're New Yorkers. They're going to be rude as fuck to you when you meet them, but when it really comes down to it, they'll help you get where you need to go.
Yeah.
Nice versus, how's that go? Nice versus kind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or these elves, and that's where they show their true color. Like, we may make fun of you when you show up. We may be very pragmatic and blunt. You brought a fucking evil thing into our town. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Why are they so mean to us? You just brought the fucking, the hell bone of Satan into our church. What do you think we're going to do?
Right.
But when it really came down to it, they show up and they're willing to shed blood. And he does. The main elf that you saw him as aloof, he dies alongside of... He could have been immortal and lived forever in the land of the elves, but he died here for you because he cares about you.
And he still looks pretty in death.
I'll give you that. I'm not really drawn to dead elves, but again, we don't kink shame. We
My intro into the Battle of Helm's Deep is almost universally everybody I know is like, oh, I've never seen a battle like this and done this way. And since there's this has obviously become a staple in movies now, but this is one of the biggest, most well done, large scale battle scenes put to film at the time. However, I feel like I saw the test run for this when I watched Army of Darkness in theaters in the early 90s.
Hail to the king, baby.
Oh, good call. Yeah, I could see that.
There is a very similar castle siege by hordes of undead, and there's a large number of them, and that was probably based on Lord of the Rings, itself. This drawing from the fantasy
cyclical
trope.
nature of art, how they're kind of inspiring each other and using methods from each other to
Lord
paint
of the
picture.
Rings. Inception.
I mean, think about it. They're even in that movie. They're up on the wall. They have the ladders. They're all all the skeletons.
All
they're
the jokes.
Yeah, all the jokes. They're stationed outside.
I say that tongue in cheek, but really they do have some
quite
jokes
a
on
few.
the top of the wall.
Yeah. They're.
Would you like me to get you a box? What a good line.
I can't really say that I can draw that because I've never seen Army of Darkness.
No, we're gonna fix
Oh my
that.
God, it's so good. It's so good. I saw that before I saw any of the Evil Dead. I had that movie almost memorized before I saw a single Evil Dead. But yeah, I'm right there with you. And coming from a kid of the 80s and somebody that played a lot of D&D and was into fantasy, medieval fantasy and stuff like that, I can see where you're saying, because to me growing up, Army of Darkness was one of the few times that we saw an undead siege. The first time we saw undead warriors fighting en masse, even though it was a joke. And that's part of why there was a little bit of me that was disappointed that Army of Darkness was a comedy, because I wanted to see somebody do that, but take it seriously.
Right.
I want to see like a real skeletal army attacking real people that are scared for their lives and stuff like that. When I get this, I'm like, oh shit, okay, so these are just orcs attacking. It's a different spin on the same medieval fantasy trope, but this is the yardstick by which all big fantasies are gauged by. Even when we get to the next movie in the trilogy and we see the battle in Return of the King, I'm going to be gauging that against this. This is the new max that you can ascertain or you can ascend to.
But
we'll talk about whether it does or not later.
Good Lord, do I love these shots of the orcs in the rain, and they're just snarling, and the steam is flying out of their mouth. It's so fucking intimidating, man. It is like death on legs.
And the shots of the Rohirrim and elves, the same, like the fear in their faces and the rain pouring down on them and the hopelessness that they're feeling is, it's just very well
Some of
shot.
that is real. I'm sure if you were talking to some of the extras, they would say that's not acting.
Yeah.
I'm actually like kind of pissed off and miserable because they were working long hours.
Getting water jumped on them.
120 days. They worked over the course of 90 nights in those 120 days. So 3 months. Imagine showing up for 3 months straight every night to put on a bunch of leather and stand in the rain in a cold field.
So I believe the orc noises are a mix of tiger and pig.
Yep.
When they're injured, it's pig. When they're roaring, it's tiger. But it just came on the screen. There's a shot of like you can't even see their face.
Wait,
all you see is
who just came on the screen? How excited were you?
I'm very excited.
Again, dirty.
No, the scene where it's like you can't even see the orc's face. You just see that weird armor, that like come in, just like the steam coming out from underneath. It's like, fuck, man, this is dark.
Maybe those were the Uruk low that they had to put them in stilts, so you didn't want to see the front because they were kind of like down. Their head was just barely above their chest bone.
They're standing on boxes.
We got the Wilhelm. I'm going to get to some more stats about the fight in just a minute, but I noticed thematically that there was a Wilhelm Scream very early.
Star Wars did it first.
No, Star Wars did not do it. The Wilhelm Scream comes from a movie in the 60s. Are you kidding me?
Star Wars did it first.
From Star Wars. No, we are not.
Star Wars did it. Star Wars did it.
But I'm curious, like, I wonder, what are your guys' opinions? Is it in there because is it more for utility or is it tradition?
It's
and
tradition.
If it's tradition, is it like a sign of good luck, like breaking champagne on the bow of a ship? If you don't put the Wilhelm Scream, is that kind of like invoking bad luck on your film?
I don't think it's that deep. I think it's a filmmaker saying, I want to put this in because it's in all the movies that I grew up with of a big,
But it's in like every movie almost.
Yeah.
If there's somebody falling off of something, the Wilhelm Scream ends up making it
If I
in.
made a movie, it would be in the movie. So it's just like,
It's like a little Easter egg for people.
Yeah.
But it's an Easter egg that transcends like all film genres, and it's not even that great of a like. It's a good scream, but it's so noticeable that it actually kind of pulls you out a little bit.
How dare you? It's a great scream.
But it pulls you out because it's so noticeable. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I get it, but I'm kind of curious. Like
I
imagine there are probably some directors that are superstitious about it, and like I have to use it.
I don't.
I notice it all the time.
I notice it, but it doesn't upset me or make me care. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV screen when the Wilhelm Scream happens. You know.
Yeah, but then again, you enjoyed that in Star Wars. Whenever they make a reference, you're like, "He said the thing. He said the thing."
He said it. He said it.
Oh, look, he's got golden dice on his dashboard. That's what Han Solo did.
I'm gonna make you Wilhelm Scream for your slander against Star Wars.
So a couple of stats for the battle for Helm's Deep. Again, they say it rained for 90 nights. So yeah, they actually worked more than 90 nights. It just rained for 90 of them. Mm-hmm. So they didn't even have to simulate the rain in a lot of it. It was just actual rain.
We're saving money, guys. So be happy about that.
Yeah, we're saving money. Go stand in the rain for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea how big of a scale this was, there were 20,000 extras.
Yeah.
Wow.
20,000. Think about that.
Yeah.
I think at one point they delineated, and there was like 400 that were just playing as the elves, and like 10,000 were playing as the orcs, and the other, you know what I'm saying?
You're
like
right.
it was a shitload of people, mixture of a lot of different, and a lot of them local, but a lot of different cultures and representations of people in there. But obviously, a lot of them are wearing costumes, so you don't, whether somebody's Asian or Puerto Rican or whatever, you're not going to see
a lot of women playing men.
Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
reverse Shakespearean.
Reverse Shakespeare.
Peter Jackson felt so bad about this experience, even though...
Quick, say Shakespeare backwards.
Ecapsirias?
Nice. Very good.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Now reverse that.
Because I was like, pure Shakespearean.
and see if it sounds anything like it when you play it in reverse. That'll be interesting.
Cyrus back.
Sorry, please go on.
My response was pure Shakespearean, so whatever.
Pure Shakespeare. Yeah. It sounds like pure Michigan, but pure Shakespeare. Yeah. Did you enjoy that play? Pure Shakespeare.
Perfect.
Wow.
Some of the other facts. Peter Jackson felt so bad about the experience that the extras went through, even though the extras describe it as kind of going through a war themselves, and there was a lot of bonding going on, and they feel like they were on different sides of the war. And there was a friendly rivalry, but there was a little bit of rivalry. They're always trying to outperform each other and stuff. That he ended up making T-shirts for every extra, and they... On the front of them, it said, "I survived Helm's Deep," but the M in Helm was crossed out with an X, so it looked like it said, "I survived Hell's Deep." And on the back, it had the symbol of their...
All I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Yeah, pretty much. But on the back, it has the emblem. So for if they were in the Orc army, it had the white hand of Sauron on a black shirt, and the text on the front was red. For the elves, there was a blue shirt. The color on the front was silver, and on the back, it had the elves logo in gold or something like that. So it felt very similar to Orcs versus the Alliance in World of Warcraft, even with the color scheme. But whatever, that works.
I suffered for 90 days and 90 nights, and all I got was this T-shirt.
Right.
The other known fact that I kind of pointed out earlier was that Arwen was originally written in this. So if you have a quick eye, or if you're so inclined, you can even go probably look it up on YouTube, Arwen scenes in Helm's Deep, and you'll see that she is like trafficking people to go in different directions and shooting.
Oh no, she's trafficking people? That's not
great.
Well,
it's with consent. It's for their own benefit. Not all trafficking is wait, I'm not even going to finish that.
Would you like to expand on that comment, Kelly?
No, I think I'm going to
move on.
Leave that one.
I love the build-up here of Gimli and Legolas's rivalry being the how many they've taken down and killed.
Keeping track. Yeah. They're counting as they go. And you can see that Legolas has a severe advantage that he can kill a lot quicker than Gimli, it appears.
Also, why does Gimli go for the crotch all the time? Like, I get that he's shorter than
everybody,
height
difference.
But he literally goes for the crotch. Like, he is hitting everybody in the crotch.
That's like saying, like, Michael Jordan should stop dunking because it's too easy for him. Like, that's not fair. If he's good at it, keep doing it.
He could do a side swipe and hit the femoral artery, but no, he goes dick first.
this is getting.
He's the
Gimli.
He's
he
the guy
goes
playing a
dick
fighting
first.
game character that only knows one move, and he just keeps doing the move over and over.
It's the
again.
Johnny Cage ball punch split.
Yeah, it works. It works for him.
This is it's jumping a little bit ahead, but it's related to that. So I don't know if it was in the theatrical because I felt like I never saw it. But the very last one at the end of the battle when Gimli's sitting on the guy and says, I've got 43.
I don't think that was in the theater.
It wasn't in the theater. That was
so he shoots him. And he's like, now I have more. He's still twitching. And he's like, he's twitching because my axe is embedded in his nervous system. And he
shakes the axe and it moves his leg.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so
a little
dark.
gruesome.
So dark.
A little gruesome.
I love it.
So the shield skating scene, is that cool or cringe?
It's pretty fucking cool.
It was super cool then, for sure.
At the time, it was a fucking
That's exactly how I
come
feel.
to Jesus moment, you know. But
at the time, I was like, "Holy shit, this is badass!" Watching this in the year of our Lord 2025 or beyond, I'm like, "Oh god, I thought that was cool." Did I wear a black leather trench coat to the theater to watch this movie?
It's still low key cool if you allow yourself to have fun. But I recognize that's the somewhat cheese of it.
I did. I had this
right.
very discussion in my own brain when I saw that scene. Like, I was like, oh, that's cool. No, it's kind of cringe. No, but it was so cool. But
in the theater, first time you're seeing it, it's very fucking cool. Yeah.
The Pip and Merry conversation about the war, they start talking about whether or not they should go home or whatever, and the Shire theme is playing in the background again. Just another one of those nods that if you're listening for it, you hear all these little musical interludes reminding every time a character thinking about home, you get a little hint of it.
I actually want to talk about the if we're getting into the Ents attacking Isengard.
Yeah, we're at the part where I was going to start bringing up them finding the field of dead and stuff.
Yeah, because they're smartly, one of the smartest decisions these two little hobbits ever made is
Pip
to say,
again. Pip.
Yeah, no, take us south so that he will see. You know, and I feel it's another one of those things where I feel really bad for Treebeard because he's like, these trees were my friends.
Yep. But it shows you, I mean, this was written in the wake of World War II, right?
Yes.
So you see this is a direct political allegory, like bonk bonk on the head kind of, because it's looking at how America, for example, stayed out of World War II until much later. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait a minute, some of my friends are getting beat up now. I should do something. And we as the audience understand Treebeard's point of view, but there's also a point where we should like transcend that and be like, it shouldn't take that. You should have cared before that, before just your friends are being hurt. What about my friends? What about their friends?
It's still so very valid today.
Absolutely. And that's where, like, I understand that pragmatism and trying to be careful about which fights you get involved in. But there's also, like, when there's an injustice being done, how do you not stand up for that? I
want to take a little bit of that shade off of Treebeard, because it's also a thing of reading about or being told about something is one thing, but actually seeing the results and devastation with your own eyes is a completely different emotional reaction and response. It makes it real instead of words on paper or words told to you.
Yeah, I get it, and I'm not poo-pooing on him too much, but there is, like, just in general, we all should take this internally, that it should you should care whether it affects somebody you care about or not. You should care about other people in general.
Interestingly enough, the books do not show the Ent attack on Isengard. We see the aftermath of it.
That works.
We know that they're heading there, and then we see the aftermath, which is kind of interesting.
That works.
Yes.
Yeah, I can deal with that.
I'm kind of glad to see it. Like I like seeing the Ents attack, but it's just as effective to come in on the aftermath, and it's like, oh man, they really fucked this place up.
I will always and forever die laughing at the Ent that is on fire, and he runs forward and sticks his head in the water. Like, I die laughing at that every time.
As I was writing that note in my paper, I was like, why do I bother? All three of us are going to bring that up. That's such a classic part. And it's not even like center stage. It's like off to the left a little bit or something, you know? Like,
and it's like little tiny.
But we all see it. We all know it. And the person that animated that had a lot of fun. It makes sense. Like, oh my God, he's on fire. We'll just put your head down. Yeah. Hey, all right, he's good.
He did it.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah.
Oh, he might get swept away. Oh, you're talking the piece of wood might float away to a different place?
I mean, his toes.
Oh, no.
Not even that. His toes are literally roots. You know, they can just like...
Yeah, he can just point down. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. At this point in the battle for Helm's Deep, things are not going very well for the humans. They've had the explosions go off, destroying their wall. The walls themselves are being overrun by ladders and different mechanisms at the orc. The orcs are very industrious. They have great engineers working for them. Orc engineering is much more approved than their hygiene. As long as you can work a tractor, then we don't care what you smell like.
Right.
You can literally come out of a pot of shit. You're fine. You're fine. Go get to work, buddy.
Brother,
Design us a new wheel. So they overcome them. And I have a question, and I don't know, I'm not asking that you all would know, but like when they're inside the inner keep and the king is looking around and he's pretty destitute and Aragorn's like, no, we still have a chance. I'm looking around and at least what they're showing us on the screen, they got maybe a dozen people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They don't have like, what are you going to do against like 8,000 people when there are like 10 of you or maybe 20 if there are a few off screen that I'm not seeing? But
maybe you can chalk that up to he's expecting Gandalf. Like we have to stay and fight until Gandalf gets back.
In my heart, it feels like there are more people in there. They just didn't fully explain that to me.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like I feel like my eyes are telling me there's not a lot of people there and I'm thinking there's got to be like 50, 60, something, you know what I'm saying? There are more there that I'm not seeing for them to even bother sallying forth. Because if we had less than 20 people, what's the point in sallying forth? There's no point. But they do sally forth, and we have the classic Gandalf coming over the ridge.
Well,
before that,
I love the ride out with me thing and Theoden's reaction.
Oh yeah, his speech. Yeah,
his reaction to it. He's just like he perks up and he's like, "Yes, for the glory of battle" or whatever. And he's, you know,
today is a good day to die.
Yeah, it's cool.
Again, that man and his speeches. If you want somebody to rally troops, he's the one to do it.
Hell yeah, he is.
That was the part that I talked about earlier, where they all ride out and like they're wildly singing and CGI nothing because nothing was there.
Yeah. I don't want to watch it again just because I don't want to see how horrible it looks now.
No, you should because it's kind of funny if you're scrubbing.
No, don't worry. I'm sure you'll see it in the third movie too because that's exactly what I did.
Hold on. Okay.
So when they're on the bridge riding out.
Oh yeah. That one guy is just like swinging off of the bridge. There's nobody over there, and he's just
yeah. If you're looking for it, it's silly.
Could have picked a better spot.
But then Gandalf shows up with the Instagram filter as the background. Like that sunset is so perfect and
sunrise
or sunrise, I should say. Yeah, sunrise. Yeah, and he comes over with a 40 million lumen. Yeah. So Gandalf kind of saves the day with the Rohirrim, which I mean, it can be argued that if they had like 500 heavy cavalry and they struck them from the back completely unaware, they could rout their entire army, pushing through the rear. But there's also like 10,000 troops caught unaware versus 520.
Yeah, but
I don't know, man. I don't know.
They were blinded.
Yeah,
they
true.
blinded.
Blinded by the light.
Magically blinded. Yes.
Wrapped up like a douche.
Another runner in the night.
So we cut back to Sam and Frodo back at the after the Isengard falls. Finally, we see that with the water crashing down on the miniatures. One of the first times you really can tell that it's a miniature set. Water is the nemesis, is always the chink in the armor for these miniatures because water looks different. Other than that, fucking brilliant. And even knowing that the water's a little bit weird, they still did such a fucking good job with it. I just really,
saw the tree
really
on
well
fire scene. It's the timing of it because everything else is already rushing in, and then after that's established, he comes running up from the left, dumps his head in the water.
Oh shit! Yeah. Oh.
Wonderful. Frodo never pulls his sword on Sam in the book like this. This is some of the added drama that we talked about.
No.
Yeah, and I even wrote down that this added drama, it feels like this is Peter Jackson's way of force feeding you that the ring is affecting Frodo.
Because we can't see the internal, you know what I mean? On the page, we get the internal, the internal struggle, but we have to make that on the exterior, and this is a way to do that. I'm fine with it. It just doesn't happen in the books.
Absolutely, and it's just the different medium. You have to draw different parallels. I brought that up with like The Expanse, and I'm reading the book versus watching the TV show. That sometimes you have to add like a little bit of conflict almost for exposition, so you can explain how these two characters are a little bit different. And they'll work through it on the screen, whereas in the book, they just internally work through it. And they don't have to yell at the other person to get there, kind of thing. It all works out the same. And this is very similar to earlier in the movie where he's yelling at him in the swamp land or whatever. He's like, it's mine, it's my duty, mine. What would you know about it or whatever? So it's just more continuation of that. But we start to really feel bad for Sam because this is like, may we all have a bestie with that kind of energy in our lives, like somebody that's going to pick you up and not only just pick you up and seem like, because there might be some toxic people around that will always be there to help you, quote unquote, but they'll like be a vampire to your energy in other ways. But Sam is always bright, trying to make some good food, and all he wants to do is drink some beer and flirt with Rose back home, so, or is it Rosie or Rose?
Rosie.
This is where we see Faramir pass his test.
And ideally now, like, at least in my opinion, hopefully we see both Boromir and Faramir with a lot of respect now. Yes. We just now have a little bit more for Faramir because he didn't need to test it the way Boromir did. But yeah, this is where we get one of those winged dragon penis creatures that flies over the not dragons. And this is one of those classic scenes. Like anytime I see Lord of the Rings referenced in another movie, more often than not, this exact image is what's on the TV in the background as identified. We all know that this is Lord of the Rings when we see it, with Frodo standing on that half wall / bridge.
The like slow motion creature, of the things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't get much better CGI than that, especially for the time. Like, I imagine somebody might be able to better it up a little bit now, but it's so good. It still holds up so fucking well.
One thing I notice in that is they really make Frodo's hair darker when he's doing the eyes and the ring is taking hold over him. I don't know. It's almost black. And his skin looks paler if you look at that.
I hadn't really thought about that.
It's like putting on the noir filter.
Yeah. It's like he's darkened. He's more a shadow of himself, I think, is the idea. And I found
I'll have to look for that a little bit in the third movie. That's a good eye. I'll have to look for it. Or I'll be in the third movie going, that thing you said? You're wrong. I don't see it wrong. Peter Jackson makes a cameo in the Battle for Helm's Deep as one of the spearmen.
Yeah, he throws the spear.
During the filming, I'm getting to the end now of some of my just random trivia, so here's just a couple little pieces of random trivia for you. During the Osgiliath scene, at what point Sam looks at Frodo and through teary eyes says, "By rights, we shouldn't even be here." And Peter Jackson has said for the record that they added that line as a nod to those that have read the books, because in the books, the hobbits never go to Osgiliath.
Right.
So that's Sam breaking the fourth wall, basically saying, like, by rights, we shouldn't even be in this town.
Right.
And they shouldn't. They should be somewhere else. Andy Serkis had something that he carried around with him all the time called Gollum juice.
yeah, to like agitate his throat. Yeah.
That sounds so disgusting.
His throat was so agitated from all the different takes that they would have to do and the weird voices you have to do. And when they asked him his mixture, he said it was a mixture of honey, lemon, ginger, and a couple other things. But those were the three primary ingredients. And as somebody that I've done like opera singing and stuff like that in my life, honey, lemon, ginger, all above. Yeah, I agree with it. Like I'm a little bit more particular which time of day I would drink which thing kind of thing. But yeah, these are all things that are commonly prescribed to people that are nursing an overused vocal cord.
Gollum juice. No, thank you.
That paints a whole different picture in your mind. And I want nothing to do with Gollum juice. Thank you.
Fresh squeezed Gollum juice. Everyone get it while it's hot.
Why do you do this?
So basically the movie ends on Frodo getting away from Faramir, Helm's Deep being barely won with the power of the Rohirrim coming back and saving the couple dozen at the most people that are still alive inside the main keep. And I assume all the children and women are still alive in the crypts down below, Winterfell style. Mm-hmm. But hopefully nobody comes back to life in their version.
Dun, dun, dun.
Important to point out the little scene of Sam being reasonable to Gollum for the first time. And Gollum being the one who's
too little, too late,
not listening. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He doesn't even trust the master anymore. He doesn't even trust Frodo anymore, let alone Sam. That hobbit always had it out for him. He's not going to believe him now.
Right.
Doesn't believe either one of them. They're trixies.
False.
They're trixies. These hobbits.
Trixie false hobbits.
We end then on Gollum, basically letting the audience know that his other personality is back. Gollum himself is back. The evil, the murderer, all that shit. He's completely back, and he might not be pulling the reins, but he's pretty goddamn close to being in charge of he's holding the light more than Smeagol is, that's for sure. But even it seems like Smeagol is convinced.
I took it as he is 100% holding the reins, and he's letting Smeagol come through to convince the Hobbits that he's still gone.
That's the way it reads to me, and especially because it's Smeagol's the one who's saying, not that we shouldn't do it, but that Sam's always watching and we'll get caught if we do it. That
right.
He is allowing this. It's not Gollum taking control. It's Smeagol's
down with it.
Yeah.
Smeagol doesn't trust them either anymore.
Yeah.
So he's giving the light, kind of like Kevin gave the light to everybody in the movie.
I have one final thing. I want to point you to the very last scene, Kelly. If you were scrubbing, if you would look at it, this shot of Mordor with the winged things flying and the mountain and all the fire in the background.
I am watching it right now. The camera's panning up through the mountain.
Now
I'm seeing the side of the mountain.
Pause it when you have the tableau.
More mountain. Okay, it's hell.
So we just recently watched the South Park movie. And there's a shot when Kenny first gets in hell that looks exactly like this, and the little flying creature.
Hell, maybe.
The little flying creature makes a little fiery poot. It's like the flaming rock comes out of its butt. It looks exactly like this, and I can't disassociate them from one another. I'm wanting.
Oh my god! I guess I did too. I didn't realize it, but the first thing I said was, "This is hell."
And South Park came out first.
Yes, South Park came out first, and it's almost like identical. So.
Wait, the South Park movie did come out first, so Peter Jackson was referencing the South Park. There's a South Park reference. We broke it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Little Hobbit, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Suck my balls.
This is the only trilogy in human history to have all three of the movies be in the top 100 movies as rated by the American Film Institute.
Nice.
No other trilogy has ever had that accolade.
Well, other trilogies have been snubbed, though.
Oh, one other little thing about this movie, New Line Cinemas, they had interjected in Fellowship before, and I didn't bring it up, but they wanted a longer prologue in Fellowship. They wanted a long setting the scene about the world and telling you about the different factions and stuff like that. And Peter Jackson felt like it was better. Well, and his writers like Philippa and I forget the other woman's name, but they decided to go with a more truncated, but just telling you more about the history of the ring and let you figure out the cultures as you go. What New Line Cinema wanted in Two Towers to be added at the beginning was literally a previously on.
Get the fuck out of here.
And then summing up the first movie.
That's complete.
Just in case you hadn't seen the first movie.
Complete disrespect for the audience. Like, come on, man.
Yep.
Yeah, no, you have to trust that if somebody's going to see part 2 of an epic fantasy, they have to have seen part 1. I'm sorry. No. Well, what if I haven't seen part 1? Then go see fucking part 1 if you think you're going to be interested. Why are you trying to pick up a book and read it halfway through?
Did you hear that thing about the Netflix people saying that they tell people that if they can design their shows where people say what they're doing, so people who aren't paying attention know?
Yep.
Oh my God, we are heading towards idiocracy.
We are there, my friend. We are there.
It's electrolytes. It's what the plants crave.
It's a whole movie of they're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Hi, we're the hobbits. We're in Isengard.
And every once in a while it shows an orc fart, and then it goes back to we're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have gotten to the end of Two Towers. I'm going to look up a couple of real quick facts for numbers-wise for you. As before, the director was Peter Jackson. Screenplay by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, Peter Jackson. This time they added Stephen Sinclair to it. I don't know much about him, admittedly, so sorry. I'll try to look up more in the next one. Music again by Howard Shore. This movie, its reported budget was $94 million. Its box office was $951.6 box office $1 million. So just under $1 billion. So it means it didn't do as well as the first one. I think the first one did just over $1 billion. But the reception of it is that it is the least liked out of the 3 movies. It's on a review aggregates, it's got a really high rating, but if you look at the other ones, generally the other ones are rated a little bit higher, I think. I'll double check just to make sure.
Interesting. It makes me excited to watch Return of the King because that's actually the one that I've seen the least.
Yeah,
I barely remember Return of the King.
This one was 7 times in the theater for me.
And I might be wrong here, but I think it might be that at the time it wasn't as appreciated. and I thought I saw an interview, so I might be misspeaking here. I'm definitely paraphrasing. Somebody interviewed Peter Jackson about that and said, like, it appears that, like, this one isn't quite as well liked as the other ones. And you could even see it in the Oscar nominations. Like, it had 11 or something in the first movie and 3 in this one, that kind of thing. So it's still getting nominated for Oscars, still universal acclaim, but not quite. Yeah. It's not an A+. And when they asked him, he's like, well, that's what happens when you write your Empire Strikes Back, your middle part of a trilogy that's a lower note. People are going to walk out of the theater a little bit less happy. That's kind of the way it goes.
This is my least favorite of the 3. It just is. There's a lot of exposition in it, and it just is a little bit more downtrodden and sad, like you said. It is definitely my least favorite of the 3.
Yeah, the first 2/3 of this movie are a lot of exposition, so like the first time you watch it, it's wonderful, and it's good to have on in the background if you've seen it before, but actively paying attention to a lot of the Treebeard scenes was a little bit much for me watching it this time around. Yeah. But it is saved completely by that Battle of Helm's Deep. I'm not the kind of person where I usually get into action scenes, but for a D&D nerd, we didn't have anything like this to compare it to. This is the first time anything like this had ever been done to this quality.
You know, a million things have tried to do it, and I think the thing, funnily enough, that actually comes close to doing it again was that the 2-part episode of Game of Thrones where the attack on the wall kind of gave me the same. The same.
No, the battle for the wall or whatever. The one that Mance Rayder.
Gotcha.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
They're climbing up the wall at different places, and there's like multiple places where fighting's happening. But even then, like Game of Thrones uses this as their measuring stick too. Like when they did the Battle of the Blackwater Gate or whatever it's called, where Stannis tries to, they were like, people were asking them, why couldn't you do something like Helm's Deep? And they're like, are you kidding? We would love to do something like Helm's Deep, but we can't get 20,000 extras. Right. How are you? We can't afford that first
the
off.
Funding of it,
Yeah. So they're like, we just imagine there are 18,000 people just off camera.
that goes to show like something, the way it's shot, and I guess the story going along with it. That Battle of the Wall sort of felt like the same sort of level of like, oh shit, and wow, this is big and horrible for the people involved, and that's one of the only things that's come close to me, at least in my opinion, of capturing the same spirit of this.
Yeah.
Right.
And good call at connecting it to Army of Darkness. I never would have done that. I'm glad you did, because they both sat in the same spot, and I didn't realize it until you drew the parallels.
When we inevitably watch Army of Darkness, your jaw is gonna drop at how similar that those.
Now that I'm looking for that, I'll probably see it even more. So we're not gonna do our normal thing. Are we gonna do the Muppets?
We already kind of did it right for the first one, so it's not really. You don't need to rehash that.
I mean, unless there's somebody else, I would love to see Muppets surrounded by a Theoden as a human. Like I would
when he's all sick and shit.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine Muppet Grima Wormtongue?
Or no, I was thinking human Grima Wormtongue, and everybody else is the Muppet, and everybody's like yelling at him and kicking him out of town and stuff like that. That would be funny as hell.
That too.
Kick the shit out of somebody.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
But we do have to do our MVP, right? Like we have to still do that one.
Definitely. A different MVP for this movie. So let's go. Whoever wants to go first. So who's your MVP?
I'll go first this time. And I don't even think it's kind of hard to tell from the way I've talked through this movie. It's Theoden. Theoden.
So you
thought it was going to be Haldir.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be the hot elf that you're saying he's such an amazing actor. He's dead. Yeah. I still think he's doing an amazing job laying there emotional.
He looks very pretty. He is very, very pretty. But no, Theoden is like the movie doesn't work without him. And I think that his performance is just outstanding.
It's Gollum and Smeagol for me. That's like the linchpin of this movie, in my opinion.
I can see that too.
I have the same argument as you. As like this movie, this is Gollum's movie in my opinion, as far as sort of just the weight of his character arc in this, like defines how this story ends.
He puts a new spin on Two Towers, like Gollum and Smeagol.
Yeah, the two towers within his mind.
Yep.
There's also, like, I'd never really seen a character with, like, multiple personality or whatever this is called technically, but I've never seen them having a conversation with themselves so effectively where they embody two different people.
Yep.
Like, I've seen performers try to do that because I used to do forensics where you would do a scene where you would move in different ways for different characters and you'd have to go back and forth. You'd have to basically recreate an entire conversation by yourself. So I see people do this all the time at competitions, but this is on a whole fucking new level. Like, that's incredible. That you're watching a world-class athlete at their peak kind of thing.
As I said, I'm a fan of Gollum from the Hobbit cartoon, and so I'm like, yeah, I heard there's more Gollum in this one, and I can't wait him to be scary. And he was scary, but also they give me all of this other stuff, you know, to like really, really flesh him out as a character. And so I'm eating good on my Gollum, train.
And they know this because they start the next movie off with, hey, you want to hear where Gollum came from? Oh, he looks pretty cute, right? Well, guess what he does? Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. My MVP is a slight twist on what you said, Jamie. I'm specifically picking Bernard Hill, like the actor. I think that Theoden as a character is okay. He's pretty good. He's very similar to other characters where we don't see a lot of development, but I appreciate that. To me, he looks like a Depression analog. But I think Bernard Hill's performance really pushed this over the fucking edge. So we're kind of saying the same thing, but I'm definitely I'm tipping my hat to Mr. Hill because that was, wow. Just, you don't see that kind of emotion coming out. Like, I wonder if he's had personal strife that he pulled on for that, or like even if I had an interview with him, I wouldn't even want to talk about it because it looks so personal and dark. And God bless his performance, because he turned a character that should have been just kind of like, or he could have been just like a semi-background character